Welcome to another episode of Behind the Dreamers. I'm Jennifer Loading, and we are talking to the achievers, the creators, the magic makers, and the dreamers. These are our friends. These are your friends, and they are living the extraordinary. Well, I'm so excited about my guest today. He says with over 25 years of experience, he is an expert at simplifying the complex and putting things into systems. He uses technology to help speakers, coaches, and others, knowledge experts, communicate more effectively. So you guys are going to be in for an awesome treat. I'm excited to chat with him because I've already gotten to chat with him so many times off of this episode that we're doing right here. And he's an amazing person, a lot of talent, a lot of skill. And you guys are going to get to hear some good information today. But before we do that, we do need to do a quick shout out to our sponsor. This episode is brought to you by Walt Mills Productions. Need to add excitement to your YouTube videos or some expert hands for editing? Look no further. Walt Mills is the solution you've been searching for. Walt is not only your go-to guy for spicing up content, he's the force behind a thriving film production company with numerous titles in the pipeline. Always on the lookout for raw talent, Walt is eager to collaborate on film and internet productions. With a background deeply rooted in entertainment and promotion, Walt Mills leverages years of skills to give you the spotlight you deserve. Want to learn more about Walt and his work? Head on over to waltmillsproductions.net and let your content shine. Okay, so with that, we're going to bring our guest on the show today. Ely Delaney is an automated systems strategist and a best-selling author. He's the founder of the Networking Like a Rock Star course. And as I mentioned earlier, 25 years experience helping people simplify things. So Ely, welcome to the show. We're so excited to have you here today.
My pleasure to come hang out with you today.
This is going to be fun. And you got your Meet Cool People on the background because you got an awesome podcast and I love it.
Got to have the Meet Cool People. That's the whole point of life. You know, it's like I always tell people, they always get confused about the fact that I'm an automation guy. And I'm like, yeah, but I automate everything I can so I can do the stuff that I can't automate, which is having real relationships and meeting cool people. And that's kind of where it came from.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And it's always fun to meet cool people anyway. So if you can spend time doing that and getting your work done, it's kind of cool.
Exactly.
All right. So let's talk about what you're doing. Tell us a little bit about what you got going on there, because I know our people are going to be going, okay, what's all of this about?
Okay. So, I'm an old school automation guy. I started with some software that we're not even going to bring up any names, but a software that was around for a really long time back in 2007. They were very early on. Nowadays, automation has become a really common thing. Everybody and their dog is an automation expert. But reality is what I do is I help people not just with the technology, but how do you communicate more effectively? How do you build better relationships with the people that you meet, whether that be your prospects, your clients, your vendors, all that kind of stuff, and use those tools without losing the human touch. And that's the magic. That's really the biggest piece with it is how do you use tools and technology and automation and AI and all the different things that are out there. Because I know AI is the big hot button right now. But how do you use those tools without losing the human touch? And how do you still have a real conversation with people while leveraging your time? Because time is the one thing that we can't buy more of. And give us the time to do the real relationship building, the real meeting of the cool people.
Yeah. And I think we kind of have touched upon that. You mentioned that in the very beginning about setting things up so that you can do the cool things that you want to do. Right. And I think that, I think in a time where everything is so busy, and I always say, I feel like we always say times are busy. I think they're just always busy. I think no matter where we are in the cycle of life, we're busy. Right. But I do think that there's some truth in that when we can get systems in place, whether that be in our careers, our personal, whatever that is, we get these systems in place. It gives us the flexibility to do the things that we want to do and also become more effective in the things that we want to do.
Right. And there's a couple things. Like one of the things I teach a whole principle, what I call entrepreneur ADD, which is automate, delegate, and delete. So automate what you can, delegate the stuff you can't, and delete the crap you shouldn't be doing anyway. And when you go through that 3-step process, what ends up happening with it is it frees you up to do the things that can't be automated, delegated, which are the relationships. And that relationship could be going to events. One of the things I love to do, I love to go to events as a speaker. I love being a speaker. I love getting on stage, but really The magic happens when I get off stage and have conversations with people. That's my favorite part. Me Cool People got started literally because I used to, in 2019, I was traveling around the country speaking at different events. And I would literally, it's like, I might be speaking, but after I get off stage, somebody's like, that was great. Thank you so much. Which I always love and always appreciate that. But I'm like, thank you. That was awesome. By the way, I'm going to get some people together for dinner. Why don't you come join us? And we would have 10, 15, 20 people to get together, and we would go to some weird oddball place. I wasn't going to fancy dining. I would go to the hole in the wall that had the best food and the best environment and have the most amazing conversations. And when you can set your business up to do a lot of that stuff, the behind the scenes, the heavy lifting stuff, the stuff you don't really want to do or don't like to do, and to free you up to have those kind of events, that could be a business event or going and spending more time with your family. It doesn't really matter what you do with the time, as long as you're doing something that's of value. And that could be spending time with your family, spending time with relationships, helping your highest level clients in a more intimate way, whatever that is. And whatever that is gets you excited. That's what it's all about. That's what automation is really designed for. And so that's where I like to help people with getting those pieces and those foundations in place.
I like the ADD. Say that again. I like that one. That part right there is like sticking in my head.
Oh yeah. So I always say we go into automate what you can, delegate what you can't, delete the crap you shouldn't be doing anyway. Yeah. That is entrepreneur ADD.
Yeah, I love it. That's what's sticking in my head right now. There's a lot of good takeaways there though, Ely, because I think we get so hung up on busy work, doing tasks, and we think that. And because oddly enough, I work with a lot of ADD, ADHD, whatever you want to call these kind of, I work with a lot of them. They somehow gravitate towards me. And one of the things I always talk about, because you hear from them a lot of times, is that they have trouble focusing on what's important. And I think as a whole, as entrepreneurs, a lot of us have trouble focusing on what is important, right? So I think what you're saying is so true there, because we'll get boggled down in things that really don't contribute. There are things that probably need to be done, but they're not really what I like to call income producing activities. They're not things that are going to generate income for us or really put us into our zone where we're doing something that we are really gifted at doing. Like I talk about mine. If I talk about me, like I'm a forward facing person. I love having conversations, communicating. I'm a seller. I'm okay on the front. The behind the scenes stuff, and not that I have a problem being behind. I just don't like the technical things. I don't like all those things. I get bored, and then I end up, what do you call it? Procrastinating, not getting it done. And so I think when you can take this, what you're talking about, automate, delegate, and delete, when you can come from this perspective, you can really start honing in on, okay, maybe this is an area that I'm not really good at. This is a delegation area, or maybe it's something I don't even need in my business. It's not something that is really important to what we're doing here, And so I think that I like I like how you got it into these little 3 letters, and it can stick in somebody's head.
Yeah. Well, and here's the thing with that is that, like, I love to automate what I can. Really, it boils down to one thing, and I share this so much, is because we as human beings, we will drop the ball. Mm-hmm. We will screw something up. That is human nature. We will forget. Fires will happen. Things will get put on the back burner. It doesn't matter what the reason is. It's going to happen.
Right.
So if we can use the tools and technology that have been given to us to alleviate a lot of that and let the machine just do its job, then that makes it so it's like, okay, the human error has now been removed out of that. And that's why I'm a big advocate for using automation in our businesses as much as possible, except not when it comes to relationships. And that's the key with that, is because you can automate a lot of stuff. Like I have a campaign that runs for 3 years. My running joke is I could go outside and get hit by a bus today and still sell you stuff for 3 more years. And people hear that, they're like, oh, that's intense. And I'm like, yeah. I say it jokingly, and yes, don't worry about me. I look both ways twice before crossing the streets, and I stay away from buses like the plague. But the idea behind it is, how can you let the machine just run so you can focus on things that are better? It could be your unique ability. What is it that gets you excited? What is it you're really best at? And most importantly, how do you have the real conversations with real people? Because that's the key. That's where relationships grow. If you want to grow your business, it is all about relationships. But you can't be spending the time on the relationships if you're worried about how am I going to post this social media every day, or how am I going to create these graphics on Canva or whatever. It's like, no, you shouldn't be doing that kind of stuff.
Right.
And that's where the great thing is you can delegate stuff out, which is awesome. But I try to automate first, because if even delegating to another human, it's still another human. They're going to mess things up. And it's not because there's anything wrong with the person. They're human. We make mistakes. Right. So let the robot do its job. And then if the robot can't handle it, then you bring in the human person to do the job. And then you also look at, a lot of times, sometimes I start people with the delete part section first, because it's like, okay, you're doing way too many things that are not important. We need to get rid of some of that stuff.
It's amazing too, when you look at other people's activities, right? And you do that, you look and go, why are we working on this? This doesn't, do we even need this? Right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We're all guilty of it. I think as entrepreneurs, we all are. We all have to take stock of how we're running our businesses and where we're putting our energy. And I do agree with you. Relationships are the most important. It's one of the things, having been in the background with Mary Kay for as long as I was, I recognized that we were all about building relationships, but I didn't really even understand how important it was, even in that context, until I went out on my own and started really understanding the power when you really get to know people, and how you can benefit yourself and them both when you get to know people, right? Because we used to always say, Mary Kay, nothing happens till something's sold, and you ain't gonna sell anything unless you get to know people, because you can't, you may on an off chance make a sale to somebody on a quick sale, but in order to retain a client, you're going to have to build a relationship. So I love what you're doing. So quick question, because I like to talk about, the entrepreneur journey on here. And how long now have you been in business for yourself?
We're going on close to 30 years.
Okay, so you've been doing this a long time then. Yeah. Yes. Okay. So
this is my second business. The first one was a web and graphic design agency. I grew that from my dining room by myself, worked in insane, crazy hours. I ended up growing it to the point where I had an office. I had 5 employees, closing 3 to 5 contracts a week. We were killing it, growing like crazy. Yeah. And then I realized I didn't like having an office, and I wasn't sure I liked my employees either, and had to make a change and
delete.
Yeah,
you had to delete.
I had to delete. I did. And I deleted, I restructured the entire thing. And the funny thing is that as soon as I did that, I went through that process, that delete phase. And as soon as I did that, I literally, the monthly income dropped by 10K a month, but the profit increased by 20 by doing that.
Right.
Because I became more streamlined and I focused on the most important things.
Yeah, I'm glad I asked that question, because that's an important concept right there. Because a lot of times people think they're looking at the dollars coming on, but then they're not really looking at where their money's going. And if you're, making this, but you got a lot going out the door because you're not automating and deleting, right? Mm-hmm. Getting systems in place, then you're wasting a lot of money, and you may not be taking in as much as you think. So thanks for sharing that.
Oh, you're welcome.
It's a good point. It's a good point. A lot of people, and I think we all, I think all of us, some entrepreneurs, I feel like, get in and they stay in their same, they get their business and they kind of stay through the whole time in that same. And I think a lot of us, we sort of evolve, and sometimes it, goes into something else. But I always talk about these nonlinear paths, and I always feel like we sort of do similar things, but we get better because we evolve and we figure out where our strengths are, and we extract the pieces that were really good, and we start to capitalize on those pieces, right? We get smarter about where we need to be placing our energy and effort.
Yeah. It's, at first you're just trying to survive. Like when you first come out as an entrepreneur, you're just trying to survive and make it in the world as, okay, I'm going to start my own thing. And there's a lot of excitement with that, and it's new and it's scary. And so you're fumbling a lot. Over time, you start realizing, okay, here's the things that I'm better at. Here's the things that I might be great at. And this is a really important one, because I've suffered from this multiple times. This is stuff that I'm really great at, but I hate doing it, so I shouldn't be doing it. And over time, you kind of need to document that. You need to really write down, these are the things that I'm great with. These are the things I'm not great with. These are the things that I enjoy doing. And these are the things I can't stand to do. And really write that stuff down, because that will shortcut your learning curve and your growth and scaling capability once you define what those pieces are, because then that helps you define, here's my piece of genius and where I should be focusing. And you realize all these other things are things that you really shouldn't be focusing on. It's like, for a great example for me, because I come from a web design background, and I did that, like I said, it was almost 30 years ago. So I have design experience, I have coding experience. But today, when I'm working with my clients, the worst part of my time is when I'm in there helping them screw around with one of their websites because something isn't lining up quite right. And I'm like, why am I doing this?
Why am I doing this? Yeah.
Yeah. And the sad thing is I actually kind of enjoy it, but it is a very, very bad use of my time.
Yeah.
And I should be focusing on strategy and things like that. And so you have to, no matter where you are in business, whether you've been around for a while or just starting out, especially if you're starting out, do it now because you'll save yourself a lot of headache down the road. Start making those lists of things that, again, it's like, what are you good at? What are you not good at? What do you love doing? And what is it that you can't stand doing? And kind of put those lists together, and you'll start seeing where in the matrix they all fit in. And those are the things, like when you can, it's like, okay, I don't like doing this thing, but this is a repetitive task. Can I put a little bit of time in that's going to cost me a bit more and I'm not going to like it? But if I put it in now, I can automate it and then it just works.
Yeah.
Which is what I help a lot of clients with, is like, there are things that they don't like doing and they fumble around them. And it's like, let's put in the work right now, because once you build it once, and you might put in 40, 50 hours to build it in, but the first time it's done, it's literally going to work for you for the next 20 years.
Yeah.
Is that a good trade-off? Yes. And so you'll start figuring those things out. And again, anything you can automate, take advantage of that and use it. Anything, again, except your relationships. You've got to have real conversations with real human beings.
Entrepreneurs, are you ready to level up your leadership skills? Tune in now for an exclusive offer designed just for you.
This is my time.
Did you know 63% of consumers prefer businesses aligned with their values? Recognizing your core values isn't just vital for business growth, it's the bedrock of effective leadership. Whether you're a seasoned entrepreneur or an aspiring creator, identifying your core values is a key step in constructing the framework of a successful leader, enabling you to lead authentically, expand your business, and live life on your terms.
Never settled on play, putting the kettle to flame. I go 100 all day, foot on the pedal, no brakes. 10, 9, paid on my dues, waited in line, 8, 7.
Are you ready to access tools to kickstart your leadership journey? Unlock a treasure trove of insights and get your free resources at www.linktree/JenniferLoading. Take that crucial first step toward realizing your leadership aspirations and elevate your leadership game today.
Ready to shine.
This is good, Eli. All good. So because you've been in business for a while, this is probably going to be maybe not a tricky question. I don't know. But I think a lot of times, when people hear these episodes and they hear somebody like you or myself who's been an entrepreneur for many, many years, they look and go, okay, this is where you are right now, right? Like somehow you skipped all these years and went from here to here. And you've said some really valuable things about learning how you had to learn to automate and, delegate and delete or whatever you've learned. These have been skills that you've acquired through your time as an entrepreneur. But for somebody listening to this, they're going, well, okay, so Eli probably, might have had this easy. And you and I both know that is not the case because it never is an easy journey down the entrepreneur path. But I would love to know, like maybe if you can remember a time in the beginning when you were doing this, maybe a struggle aside from the part where you had to learn, to figure out what was good, what you were good at and what you needed to move, and maybe another struggle that you faced coming into this entrepreneur space.
Okay. So, we can go back to actually even for my design agency was actually one of the biggest ones, which was when I hit that point, like our business was excelling massively. And like I said, I went from myself out of my dining room to an office, 5 employees, and we were literally closing 3 to 5 new contracts every week. It was crazy.
Yeah.
But the things that I ran into were, I didn't like having an office. I didn't like having to get up and go to an office every day. But then more importantly, I wasn't happy with the relationship I had with my employees. The staff was just driving me nuts and I was miserable. And I had to go through a come to Jesus moment. It's like, okay, what are we going to do here? And I figured out that it was like, you know what? I just can't deal with this anymore. Because I had one rule with anybody who came working with me, and I still keep this rule. If anybody works with me, it's real simple. If you're not having fun, get the hell out. Done.
Yeah.
It's like, And I actually had to go to my employees and I'm like, okay, here's the deal. This is what's going on. And I had all kinds of different problems. I literally, one of them was freelancing and doing other people's websites while I was paying them to work for me while I was out doing sales. I had another one who was late every day. I mean, it was just a mess. And I finally was like, no, this is not working. And you guys know the rule. What's the rule? And they all repeated it because they knew the rule. And I'm like, here's the problem. I'm not having fun, but it's my business. I got to do something different. And it was a really, really hard thing for me because I had not just invested in these people that I thought were the right fit. And I had done a lot of above and beyond to help them out with their personal lives and things like that. And so I kind of felt betrayed at the same time too. But I had invested so much in the business to be prepared to have all the equipment and the software and everything we needed that it hit me hard. But I was like, you know what? You got to do it. And it was a little bit of a struggle to kind of figure out what was that going to look like. And once I did, it worked very well. And it's one of those things, it's a learning curve. You know, we all go through these kind of things. It doesn't matter what kind of business you have or how long, or if you have business experience. Like for me, when I started my business, I had no idea. I couldn't even spell entrepreneur. You know, I had no clue what it was. I just knew that
buzzword.
It was this really big, long word that sounded fancy. And what ended up happening with it was that I had multiple jobs that I just was miserable in. And we got to a point where, you know, I had multiple bosses that we both come to a mutual understanding that I was unemployable. And so I ended up going out on my own, and I haven't regretted it one day. There are days where I regret getting up in the morning because it's just real frustrating. But that's part of entrepreneurship. And if you're in this journey and you haven't hit that point yet, know you're going to. The kicker is that worth it for what's on the other side? Because even like I said, almost 30 years later, I have been doing this a long time. I've shifted to a completely separate business. I've completely shifted on how that business looks like. What I do today is very different than it was 10 years ago. But at the end of the day, no matter what, I've been through so many ups and downs, and most people don't even see what the downs look like behind the scenes. But it is so much better because, most importantly, I know I'm making a bigger impact. And to me, if I can take my knowledge and my wisdom and help other entrepreneurs, because that is part of my unique ability, when I do that, it's all worth it at the end. And I know there's going to be more frustrations. There are going to be other days where I want to throw in the towel and go work at McDonald's. It's going to happen. But I won't do it. I'll keep doing it. And at the end, I'll be like, oh, I'm really glad I didn't make that decision because today's a really good day. And that's just how it works.
Yeah. And you've said a lot of really good things there. And I think that, you know, going back to your story, and thanks for coming back to that. That was a good, we probably should have picked up there. Good point.
It's all good.
Yeah. I think that there is, anytime you're making change, and I don't know whether it's, you know, jumping in an entrepreneur space, or if you're going to go make a change in any area of your life, I think it's hard, especially when you get in a comfortable space where financially you were comfortable, right? You knew what you were doing there. You had things right, but you were unhappy in the space that you were in, and you recognized that. And I think that's a hard decision sometimes when you're in those comfortable spaces of, do I let that go? And I think that's why you see so many people in the workforce, like they'll be at a job that they've been at for years, making good money. And then all of a sudden, you know, later stages of life, they decide, you know what, my priorities, this is not in alignment with my core values, and I don't know if they want to use the word core values. They'll just realize it's not in alignment with their priorities. They're miserable, right? Like they just know, I'm just not happy where I'm at. You and I know better. We know that it's because it's probably not lining up with how they see their life, right? And so they walk away and they take a job where they make less money, but they're happier. And I think it all comes down to, when you look at this, it's really about take what you say and what we're saying here about everything, learning to work within your gifts, finding where you're happy in alignment with your core values, and building on relationships. If we had to sum up all of these points that we're talking about in this particular episode, I really think that's the key to being happy in entrepreneurship. It's finding what you're good at, right? Delegating, automating, working in your zone, building your relationships, and making sure that all of this is in alignment with your values. And You got a perfect combination.
Yeah. And know that things will change. You may get to a point, you might be happy as a clam today and just rocking it. And then next year, it could be 3 months from now, all of a sudden it's just like, you know what, this isn't serving me anymore. And you may not even know why. And I tend to be really slow to make that change when I do, because I'm a lot more stubborn and I don't like to give it up.
Sure.
Even more recently, I've changed a bunch of stuff in my own business that it's taken me like a year and a half to finally go, okay, fine, we're going to do
Let it go.
Let it go. Move on. Because some of us are stubborn and slow and, it happens. But know that those kind of things are going to happen and it's okay. And you are going to resist it because human beings by nature don't like change.
Right.
We want to stick with what's comfortable. That's why so many people stay in the same job for years that are miserable, is because that's a safety zone. That's where they're comfortable, even though they're comfortable being uncomfortable because they hate it. They don't like it, but they're comfortable being there. And it's the pain is not as much as the pleasure to move in their eyes. And so if you decide to jump into the entrepreneur world, that's where it's like, all right, we're changing this. And you brought up something earlier. You talked about working with a lot of people that are ADD or ADHD. Reality is that most of us entrepreneurs are. Okay? Whether you've been actually diagnosed or not, chances are, if you're an entrepreneur, chances are
probably
you
are. Right.
Just admit it. Just be okay with it.
Yeah.
Here's a cool thing: is like when I had somebody early on when ADHD was still kind of a new thing. I had somebody that's like, well, I went to the doctor and I've been diagnosed with ADHD. I'm like, oh, really? We had no clue. It's like just totally joking. It's like, by the way, how much did you pay for that? Because I could have told you the same thing for half the price easily. Embrace it. No, because all that is your brain is wired differently, and entrepreneurs, by definition, entrepreneurs solve problems for a profit. Your brain is wired to look for a problem that you can fix.
Right.
And that's why focus is so difficult, because your brain is looking for that. The problem is that once you get the idea of how to fix it, your brain is done. You're moving on to the next thing when it might not have actually been fixed yet. You know how to fix it, but you don't want to do the work. You want somebody else to do that. That's where delegation comes in, right?
Good.
And always know that. And know that if you are into this entrepreneur world, chances are, you will probably have a bit of ADHD in you, and that's okay. Embrace it. Have fun with it. And going back to relationships, anywhere you want to go, the people that you meet are going to get you there. You've got to build the relationships. That is the one key that you cannot skip that step.
That's good, Eli. All good stuff. All right. So I want to ask you kind of a fun question. You're going to laugh at this one. If you had to sum Eli up in one word, what would that look like?
Oh, walking contradiction.
I like it. It was a couple words, but I like it. I have never heard that one before. That's good. You should. You're like living in a paradox, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I can even, if we got a second, I can explain it. My daughter actually called me that one time because people drive me nuts. We like it. We see all the silly, we have all the silly, stupid things. And my daughter's like, you always talk about how you hate people because they drive you nuts, but you love people. You're hanging out, you talk to people all the time. You're like a poster child for what not to do on stranger danger because you talk to anybody, anywhere. And I was like, well, yeah. And it's true. I'm a walking contradiction because people drive me nuts because they do silly, weird things that I just don't contemplate. I don't understand. But at the same time, hearing people's stories of why they do what they do and how the journey that they've been on has been just so fascinating. And so that's why I'm a walking contradiction.
I like it. Well, if you understand the whole, I would bring this little plug in because I've talked about this before about the not the 5 dysfunctions, the levels of adult stages of development. They talk about on the higher levels living sort of in a paradox where like you can change your mind about things. You don't have to be set in stone about everything. That's when you mentioned about stubbornness. It's okay to be stubborn. Sometimes I think you've got to be stubborn as an entrepreneur. I think you need to be stubborn really in a lot of things if you want to excel. But I think sometimes you got to learn to let things go and change your mind, right? And so I think you can be a walking contradiction. I think you can say one thing and do another as long as you're not hurting anybody in the process, right? Because we humans are complex. And I sometimes say that same thing about people too, because as much as I love people, sometimes they drive me crazy too, the quirky things they do and the decisions that they make and why they do the same things over and over and expect different results. And Like, when I talk to people, when I'm working with them, it's like the same patterns of behavior, will come up. And one of my mentors used to say, that which is most personal, I forgot what the last part, but basically what he was saying is that what we think is most personal. Oh, that which is most personal is universal. We always think our things are personal, but the morals are universal, right? Like everybody's got really the same theme. They just go about doing it and they think it's personal, they do it differently and it looks personal. So you watch people and they're complex and they do quirky things. But we know that this is how we thrive. Humans are meant to have relationships and connections. And whether you want to isolate that and say that's only about business, it's not. It's outside of that too. So I think it's okay to be a walking contradiction. That's my point.
I like it.
It's all good
on that one.
All right, Eli, I want you to put a plug in real quick for your podcast and tell us where we can find you, website, all those good things.
Yeah, so the podcast is the Meet Cool People podcast, and it really is exactly that. I have the honor of getting to meet some really amazing people, as a speaker when I was traveling all over the country, to the point of people that I meet in a virtual world now, networking in person. That's how you and I met, was through somebody else that I'm in another group with. I get to meet some really amazing people and the podcast is my way to be able to share them with other people, because it's like, okay, you're cool. You got some good stuff. I want other people to meet you. And so that's what I do with the podcast. And the easiest way for people to get a hold of me, it's real simple. Go to connectwithely.com. Ely is ELY, not ELI. If you go to ELI, it's going to be some dude. And I think it's a commercial real estate dude in the middle of South Dakota or something like that.
Not who we're talking to today.
Yeah. So connectwithely.com. You can find a link to the podcast, my website, all my social media. If you thought this was a fun conversation, like I said, I love meeting cool people. You can even book on my calendar right there. We'll have a good chat. It doesn't matter. It's all about having fun, meeting cool people. So that's the best way. Connectwithely.com. All the places you need to do are right there. I do ask one thing though. If you're going to reach out to me, I totally encourage it, no matter how you do it. But please say how you heard me. You heard me on this show, because I love to know, where am I making an impact? Where did people come from? Because I would not have met you if it hadn't been for Jennifer. Yeah, I mean, that's really where it works. So if you're reaching out to me, make sure you just put a little note with it.
Absolutely. Good stuff, Eli. We'll make sure too, when we get, all the bells and whistles on there, we'll get some plugs in there for you too, so everybody knows where to find you. So, and your website looks nice, by the way. I checked it out. Lots of good stuff on there. So our people can definitely head on over there and see what you got going. And if they need to automate, some systems, then you're the person they need to be chatting with. So definitely.
Love to chat with them about it.
All right. And then, of course, we do want to say to our listeners, if you've enjoyed the show, head on over to Apple, give us a review over there. You can head on over to YouTube, subscribe. And as I always say, in order to live the extraordinary, you must start. And every start begins with a decision. You guys take care, be safe, be kind to one another. We will see you next time.